26 is a strange number. A structure with 26 sides is curiously known by the curious name rhombooctahedron, a uniform polyhedron with mysterious properties. 26 is the number of space-time dimensions in the bosonic string theory. This is the 26th installment of Ministerium Radio, and I'm Nik Coffee. I finally got that song out of my head, listener. No, wait. There it goes again. I touched on the subject of paleworms last time we spoke, and I intend to clarify a bit. Paleworms are not dangerous. In fact, during the Great War, not the first one, or the second one, but the one before the first one, but after the second one, they were considered a local delicacy, if that so can be said. In strained times, our ancestors would dig through the ground, scavenging for these fat creatures, so they could pan-sear them or keep them stored for the winter in jars of nutrient-rich soil. Pickled paleworm isn't actually that bad, and if you decide to take a trip to the Historical Society on Sentinel Road, I'm sure you can find an old musty book of recipes. You might also find the mythological accounts of these creatures from even older books. The learned people back then considered the paleworm to be holy. In their narrative, the earth is a giant carcass, and everything on and inside of it are worms. The paleworms were the ones to eat of the earth's own divinity, while we, the humans, ate of the brain. That was a bit on paleworms. Please, help raise awareness for these milky white little insects. I have another public service announcement. Witches, listener. Witches are organizing and gathering on all platforms available. If you know someone who is or has been considering becoming a witch, or simply if you suspect your neighbor to be a witch, you should report them to the proper authorities. We've had a rise in potion lab explosions across the US in recent weeks, and the victims of unregulated magic keep piling up every day. If you know someone who uses phrases like, "let's go brooming," or "potion time," or if they exhibit witch-like traits like tired eyes, long-worded nose, green skin, lethargy, mood swings, and pointy hats, try to help them. Our first entry is addressed to me personally, which doesn't happen a lot, since I'm more or less a well-kept secret. It reads, "Dear Mr. Coffee, I have a story for you, and the best part is that it's absolutely real. Every word I'm about to relay to you is a reality. These are high promises already, but let's continue. In my town, Tomahawk, Wisconsin, there has been an absurd epidemic. Over the last 10 years, there has been a significant spike in reported cases of Lyme disease. That in and of itself is concerning enough, but there is more to it. It might be the water or something in the air, but people are changing. They're becoming more than human. My dear old father was one of the first to be stricken with this affliction. On June 3rd, 2004, my father contracted Lyme disease from a common wood tick. What followed were the expected symptoms. His hands began shaking all the time. He would make less and less sense by the week. He became a completely different person. He became angrier, easier to tick off. Now I'm gonna assume that pun was unintended and continue with the story, but remember, puns are illegal. One day I came home to my father suspended in mid-air. He was floating face down in the middle of the living room. He seemed asleep and didn't wake up when I tried to wake him. I even poured a glass of cold water on him, but there was no response. After 4 hours and 20 minutes of waiting in the living room, crying and questioning my own sanity, he came plopping down on the floor with a thud. He got a small fracture on his wrist and a bloody nose. I would come home and find him like this, floating in suspended animation around the house. I stopped inviting people over. Some assumed he was downright dead, but all were relieved when they saw my father wandering around in the yard. I was at work one day. I was still sure at the heart of the situation I had completely lost my mind. Then Jenny, one of my coworkers, broke down. She admitted to me and the entire office that her husband had begun to enter her dreams. At first, she told us this was a lot of fun. She was able to be with her husband even in her dreams. Then, however, it started changing. He began to become absent from her dreams almost every night. Then, as misfortune would have it, she found out that he had been visiting his sister-in-law's dreams from the horse's mouth. Her sister had experienced dreams of her sister's husband, coaxing her, sometimes successfully. At first, I didn't connect the dots, but later, as I came through the door, I put it all together. Jenny's husband has had Lyme disease for 3 years now. With time, it became more commonplace to see people flying around, invading your dreams, or simply defying the laws of nature. At this point, we have 5 superheroes and 3 villains, all of them infected with Lyme disease. There's something going on here, Coffee, and I think it has something to do with the outbreak of Lyme. Please, share this on the air, so maybe we will finally get help. Sincerely, Linda. Well, Linda, consider it done. Seriously, consider it that way because it's already done. I bet you're wondering if your suspicions are true, Linda, and I can tell you one thing about that. I'm not allowed to tell you. If there were cases of Lyme disease causing superpowers, that information would be highly classified, and if these cases hypothetically existed, they would be taken care of with severity. Here's something that definitely exists. Looking for something that probably might exist. Maybe. The Miskatonic Cryptid Society has reported several sightings of a special creature. Snakes are already special, especially so in Japan, where they're intertwined with mythology and eaten for medical purposes. That's right, some believe viper flesh to be a cure for diseases like tuberculosis. In Japan, there is a legend of a special kind of snake, the Tsuchinoku. The name means child of hammer, or dirt child, and it first appeared in the very first written account of Japanese history. These snakes are much shorter than most, with a wide, broad body that makes it look a little more like a limbless salamander, or a mix between a manta ray and a snake. These little guys can move speedily, so catching them is no easy feat. If you catch one, you might be able to ask why it tried to escape. Yes, listener, these things can speak, and in my own experience, they're largely mean, utilizing sarcasm perhaps to hide some deep-seated insecurity. If a Tsuchinoko is being mean to you, you can probably placate the prick with a sip of sake. These cryptids, like most sentient beings, enjoy a good drink. You probably didn't know this, but the snake-like yokai in question are formidable drinking buddies. If you're about to tangle with one of them, I advise doing so on a full stomach. Well, that's it, folks. That's the agenda. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Paleworms, and to remind you that witchery is no joke. Remember, don't be a witch unless you have a license, because that's a felony. Except in the halls of Ministerium Miskatonic. Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of Ministerium Miskatonic Radio. If you have a story you'd like us to read on the show, you can go ahead and contact us with the email in the description. And if you haven't already, go ahead and punch all those buttons below this video to be notified of future videos. That's all for now. Thank you.